When viewed from a continental perspective, this tiny speck of land might seem insignificant compared to the vastness of the United States. However, here in Manhattan, New York City, you'll find the most intriguing real estate market in the world. A market that has baffled experts and will illuminate what will likely unfold throughout the United States in the coming year. We all know that Manhattan has some of the most expensive rents in the world, but recent developments have many experts warning of an impending real estate bubble of unprecedented proportions. According to StreetEasy data, at the start of 2018, the median asking rent in Manhattan was around $3,230. This stayed sort of steady, rising slightly just before one of the most shocking events of the century. Following the pandemic, Manhattan prices dropped off a cliff, bottoming out with a shocking 25% drop. People and companies left in droves, and many declared the city dead. We all remember the "Will New York City ever recover" videos, and to be fair, the city was facing a very uncertain future that had plenty of people questioning its fate. But just as the panic peaked, the turnaround began to gain momentum. From January 2021 to today, the median asking rent on the island has surged by 63%, reaching $4,400 per month in the latest reading. This highlights the sheer absurdity of the current market. To get a sense of just how unaffordable this is, consider the commonly referenced 40x rule. The 40x rent rule is a guideline that states that a renter will need to make an annual gross salary equivalent to about 40 times the monthly rent on their New York City apartment. According to data from 2 Point Homes, the median household income in Manhattan is around $128,000. Applying the 40x rule, this means a typical household can only afford an apartment that costs $3,200 a month, $1,200 less than the current median asking rent. When considering households, which often includes couples and families, the situation becomes even more dire. A 2-bedroom apartment in Manhattan costs around $5,200 a month, requiring an income of around $208,000 just to qualify. But maybe these stats don't fully capture the affordability issue, so let's break down a real-life example to understand just how absurd this market is. Consider a mid-senior IT position at a major bank in the city. This is a relatively high-paying job requiring a degree and significant experience. The pay is around $125,000 per year, meaning that your take-home pay after contributing to a 401k, health insurance, and taxes is about $7,000 a month. Given the median asking rent of $4,400, an above-average worker would have to spend around 62% of their take-home pay on rent alone. This leaves about $650 a week for everything else, including groceries, transportation, food, and entertainment in one of the world's most expensive cities. So this begs the question, if a qualified worker with a degree and experience can barely get by, who is actually living here now, and will this clear bubble burst soon? There is a growing opinion that New York City is no longer the bustling metropolis it was before 2020. According to the latest data from Cushman and Wakefield, the office building vacancy rate remains high at 22.8%. First-hand accounts on various forums revealed that many residents agree the downtown core is noticeably quieter. The city that never sleeps has lost some of its vibrancy, with a clear decline in the social activities that once defined it. This shift is supported by data. Subway ridership in 2023 was 32% lower than in 2019. Additionally, foot traffic at 8 major Manhattan office buildings has dropped by 45% on Mondays and 52% on Fridays compared to 2019. So with these stats to back up the claim, and with rents going through the roof, the common consensus is pretty simple. NYC is one giant apartment bubble, and it's about to implode at any moment. Interestingly enough, this same topic was brought up to Kevin Maloney, CEO at Property Markets Group on CNBC. If anyone knows the New York City rental market, it's Kevin, and what he says about the future will shock you. Take a listen to his prediction.
Multifamily REITs are on the rise today as the 10-year dips below 4%. My next guest knows a thing or two about that. He's developed over 170 properties in the past 3 decades, totaling more than $11 billion in real estate assets. For more, let's bring in Kevin Maloney. He's Property Markets Group CEO. Kevin, it's good to have you here. Thanks for joining us.
No, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
I don't know if you just heard that chat we were having about the New York market in particular, where it seems like there's been some demand softness.
Yeah, so I'll tell you that in the rental market specifically, I have a couple of projects going up in the New York area. We're actually seeing pretty much the opposite of that. Maybe there will be some softness, but you might be aware that the New York State recently curtailed their 421A program. You actually cannot launch a rental in the New York City corridor without having a 421A tax abatement. So the supply side of the equation has completely stopped. This happened 5 years ago as well, and we saw a surge in rents.
And just remind us what that tax abatement does and why it went away. As quickly as you can.
No, you can. Absolutely. It's a 35-year real estate tax abatement. Taxes might be $20 a square foot, and the cost of building housing, with all housing requires an affordable component in New York City, it would be impossible based on the cost and the rent structure to launch one and to build one, especially in today's environment. But even with where cap rates and interest rates were at 3%, it was not a feasible project. So for decades, many decades, the state had used what they call a 421A program, which allowed you to have a 30-year tax abatement on your real estate taxes while you were in this particular program, which made them viable. That they have now sunset that program. So if you were not really out of the ground in the last probably 6 or 8 months, the supply of any even market rate or affordable housing has just come to an end.
Kevin's point might have seemed confusing, but here's the shocking truth. The New York City rental market isn't going to crash. In fact, the so-called bubble is about to expand even more in a way that we have never seen. The key thing to understand is that the New York City market is uniquely driven by factors that don't apply to other metro areas. You see, New York City has a special program called the 421A property tax exemption, which was set to end in June 2022. This program has been really important for building both regular and affordable rental housing in the city. The main problem is that building and running rental housing in New York City is very expensive, especially because of the high property taxes. Without help from the government, most rental housing projects wouldn't make financial sense. The 421A tax exemption, even though it's not perfect and was widely criticized, helps reduce costs and makes it possible to build rental housing. Now, because this program just ended, it has become much harder to develop new rental housing. This will make the city's current housing shortage even worse, making rental homes even more rare and expensive. Even with the 421A program, New York City didn't build enough housing. Without it, the situation is considerably worse. If you Google NYC apartment shortage, you'll see the damage already happening. New York City's vacancy rate has dropped to just 1.4%, the lowest since 1968. We all know how supply and demand work. With the supply nearly shut down, existing apartments will become much more expensive. By ending the 421A program, New York City has practically ensured a massive super bubble in the apartment market. Just imagine the current demand, but with the downtown core back to pre-2020 levels and new inventory practically turned off. This is a recipe for further accelerations in rent, and while people in the media love to push the narrative that New York City is dying, it's always going to be the place to be if you're a mover and shaker in the world. Although the city experiences waves, it has always come back to being the center of business in the US. Not long ago, in 1990, New York City had 2,245 murders. In 2023, that number was 386, an 82% decrease despite New York City's population growing significantly during the same period. This shows that despite what the media says, the Big Apple is nowhere near as bad as it once was. The city goes through wild and crazy times, but it always finds its way back to the top. New York City isn't going anywhere. Demand here will always break records. With the supply essentially cut off, the future of this city is clear. High rents and no crash. Thank you guys for watching. As always, please make sure you hit that like and subscribe button if you enjoyed it, and leave a comment below if you're currently in the New York market, letting me know what you're seeing on the ground today.